What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It is your favorite director's favorite director, and in the famous words of Alison De Laurentiis, did you miss me? Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I feel like it's been forever, but it definitely has not. I missed you guys, so I hope you missed me. A lot has happened in like the last 3 days since I filmed. A lot of new people have joined the channel, so that's cool. I'm excited to meet you. I'm excited that you're here. I'm excited that you're watching. The biggest question always on this channel is, how are you? How's your mental health? Are you taking care of yourself? So we've been watching the Menendez brothers series, and by that I mean we watched the first episode together last week. It was a doozy. The beginning of this series is already a doozy. I'm super excited to jump into that. A lot of new things are happening. I have set up a Patreon, so I'm going to start releasing on there. I will probably release the first video this week, so you guys can go check that out. There you can get exclusive content. You can see me react to things like this in full. You can get early access to things like these videos, as well as being able to participate in polls to tell me what to watch next, because I'm excited. There's a lot of things I haven't seen, and there's a lot of things I have seen that I haven't seen in forever, so it feels like I haven't seen them. But either way, I'm excited to watch all of these new things. A lot of the comments on the last video, let's talk about them really quick. The Menendez brothers, this story built for entertainment. I've gotten a lot of different opinions. I've gotten opinions that say it is really dressed up in entertainment and for entertainment purposes, which as a director I completely understand that. It's what we do to make sure you guys are all captivated. It's a way to keep you here. It's a way to keep you watching sometimes, and I wouldn't say that particularly in this specific case, but sometimes when we don't know if the story is enough to be entertaining, we'll go ahead and dress it up, and that's what we're kind of seeing. I've you know, everybody's suggesting to go watch and go listen to interviews and go watch the actual trial and watch some other documentaries, which I might end up doing. Maybe that'll be something on my Patreon. But essentially it's just people are saying that Lyle is really drastically different in real life versus what they've done, and Ryan Murphy was behind this project, and I've watched a lot of Ryan Murphy stuff. I've watched everywhere from Scream Queens to American Horror Story. I think Ryan Murphy did Scream Queens, but I could be wrong. But I'm fairly certain Ryan Murphy was behind Scream Queens because he worked with Emma Roberts. So, you know, Scream Queens, all of the American Horror Stories. He's been behind a lot of work. There's actually something else getting ready to come out that he's behind. I think it might be on Hulu, but even, you know, I caught a glimpse of an interview about how the Menendez brothers came out and talked about, you know, the series, and he said that it's hard for them to say, it's hard to take anything that they say seriously, essentially, because they haven't watched it. He says that they do justice to like the abuse, and they show that, and they have their story. So I'm interested to see how that's going to kind of play into all of this. But anyways, I love it. I love reading your guys' comments. If I got back to you, I'm trying my best, and I'll do my best to kind of interact with you guys as we go along this journey, but I kind of just want to jump right into it. There's no need for me to continue talking. Let's jump right into it and let's get started. I feel like I'm the king of setting records here, and by that I mean 2 minutes, guys. We got to 2 minutes this time around. What I think is really interesting about this scene, first of all, the way that they're kind of going through the events of the last episode. It's essentially saying previously on without saying previously on. It kind of just goes through them, and they have this kind of like undertone of like darkness, right? Like the female vocalizing that humming and all of that. What I want to say specifically about this scene is I want to talk about the way that it's lit. The way that the scene is lit, so you have blue, and then you have red, and or orangish, and what we call those are cool and warm colors, and they're very contrasting colors. So cool is going to give that more sad or cold, very think about like when somebody is dead essentially and their body gets cold, or like if somebody has suffocated or anything like that, like their lips go blue. If they're really, really cold, their lips go blue. And then you also have this contrasting warmth. So you have the lamp that's bringing in the contrast of warmth. You have the whatever, this room down the hallway, it's warmth. And also Erik's wardrobe is contrasting. There's the blue sweater on top of the orange t-shirt, and I think that that's important to note. We're gonna start talking about that battle that we were talking about in the last episode, where he's kind of internally battling, and now we're kind of seeing that represented physically. And I guess I didn't catch that in the last episode, but it's something to think about. And lighting in colors is such a prominent thing that you're gonna see throughout anything that you watch, whether it's a movie, whether it's a TV show, documentary. Like, you are going to see differences in light and color, and they are very, very, very specific, and they're done with intent. There's an intent there. There's a contrast in this room, and whether that's the contrast between the kids and the parents, you can talk about that. You can talk about the contrast between Erik and Lyle. You can talk about the contrast between the mom and the dad. You can talk about the contrast between the relationship from with the kids and the parents. So there's a lot of contrast going on here, including that lighting, which I just thought was really, really interesting. It's so chilling. It's so fucking chilling. The way that, first of all, I love that when the cops arrive, like the first thing that they do is they are immediately like, did you see anyone in the house? But it's also like, get down, we don't even know who you are. And then it's like, well, we made the call, and they're still kind of making questions. They're still asking questions, making accusations and whatnot. But Lyle is kind of like setting the tone and setting the story. Lyle is the one who's going to be the front man, which we knew going from the last episode into this episode. We knew Lyle was kind of the front man and Erik's kind of the back. Erik is actually the one that said it was the mafia, and then obviously we see later on at the funeral that kind of gained some traction, and it kind of snowballs from there, and people are like, was it the mafia, or whatever the case may be. But it's interesting that the minute that they get into the cop car, it's like a switch goes off. And that, my friends, on Vampire Diaries is what we call a humanity switch. And it just goes from crying to an immediate like, all right, we got away with it. Like, or like that was like act one, essentially, right? Like if we're calling this what it is, it's a play to them, and they just got through the first act. And then poor Perry genuinely doesn't know what's going on. He's trying to figure it the fuck out. But also, why is Perry there? Interesting. I guess we'll find out. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry.
It didn't look real. It's pretty sloppy for a mob hit, no?
A couple of things, and I'm trying my best, you guys. I'm doing my best to let it play for as long as I possibly can before I pause it and talk. A couple of things to note. Erik, his description of like finding the bodies and like the description of what he was feeling, saying like they didn't look real. I think that that's like a very accurate account for him. Excuse me. I think Lyle's account is going to be very different. I think it's going to be kind of this forced acting account versus Erik's very real account, because clearly this is hitting Erik in a different way that it hits Lyle. And you see that too in their behavior. Erik's kind of self-soothing. It cuts down to his hands. It's just a form of self-soothing, kind of that rubbing, kind of, you know, almost like this is real, I am here, versus when it cuts to Lyle, he's paranoid, which I would be paranoid too if I just killed my parents, and he's kind of looking around and he's got that bouncy knee thing, and we all know what that means, kind of the anxiety that comes with that. So, but again, I would probably feel the same way if I had just killed my parents. And then they keep showing this cop, so I'm wondering if they're doing that for a reason. And And also, when Erik is saying it's the mafia, it was the mafia, and then like we cut into these cops and they're talking and they're kind of going over the crime scene, which is everything, like it's all pretty accurate as far as like I would obviously, I know because I am specifically qualified to know that it's accurate, but like taking that liver temp, finding out time of death, or getting a good their best guess is what they, I mean, truthfully, it's what it is, right? Their best guess, a good time frame is the word that I was looking for. I don't know why it was so hard for me to find that, but the time frame in which the time of death could have occurred. So between 9:30 and 10 o'clock, the call comes in 2 hours, almost 2 hours later, and they're kind of like, okay, like that's interesting. I find it interesting that nobody heard the gunshots, but then when the detective goes, did we note the volume on the TV? It's because they turned up the volume. But when it showed them go in to commit the murders, I don't like, it's not like they turned up the volume on the TV, but there were also gunshots coming from the TV as well. I just find it interesting that nobody in the neighborhood heard the gunshots, and it's not like the neighbors are miles apart. Like you could see behind them or in front of them if you're pulling into the driveway that there are other houses. So it's interesting that nobody heard anything. And also that Erik called his tennis coach. Is that going to come back? Is that going to be something that we get? So I'm interested.
He was a man that believed in the bottom line.
One of them said that the room was full of smoke when they walked in, 2 hours after the shots were fired.
Got it. Dude, I was so fucking confused. I was like, what is he talking about that it was full of smoke, that we saw the smoke? He's talking about smoke from the gunshots.
I'm so tired, child. I'm so tired. I'm really tired.
I feel like for all of the planning that they did, granted, I know that they did commit this like a week after they, if I remember right, it's like a week later. For all of the planning that they did, Jesus, they are not criminal masterminds, and I know that. However, there are some things that you know, and I think that for all of the planning that went into it, it's like they didn't account for the after. What is our story? What exactly happened? Why lie about the smoke? What was the point in that? There was no reason to bring that up. You didn't have to say, all we noticed was the smoke. You literally could have just said it was unusual that the TV was still on. We thought that they would be in bed, or we walked in because we thought that they were in the room. Like, you could have said so many different things. You know, we figured that the TV was still on and it was almost midnight and we wanted to talk to them. We walked in and they were dead. Like, there could have been so many different ways to go about that. So the fact that you had to say the smoke just kind of throws everything off. I am so amazed that they didn't inventory the car, and I'm only saying that because technically it's a part of the crime scene because it's on the property that the crime had occurred on. So the fact that they didn't inventory the car right away is very interesting to me, and I guess it would make sense because they were spending a majority of their time in the house working on the actual crime scene itself, like where the murders took place, and then obviously they're up in the room. But I just don't understand how we're not thinking about these things. And I think that what ended up happening was, for Erik and Lyle, I don't think that they had anticipated, obviously they didn't anticipate for it to go down the way that it did. Obviously it was like, okay, we're going to kill our parents, but I don't think that it was to the extent of like, we're going to kill our parents, and then right after that we need to make sure we throw away all of the evidence. They remembered to bury the guns, so I guess we're gonna give them points for that. But everything else, it's like that. What were we planning? When we were gonna do it? How we were gonna do it? Was that all that we planned for? I don't understand that. My battery's dying. I'll be right back.
Your father.
Erik and I would both like to speak if that's okay, and I have some ideas about how to make it really moving, just with music and whatnot.
Not the music. One of you guys did tell me that the music was actually not Lyle's idea, that it was his dad's company's idea. So thank you for that. Because had I not known, I would have this whole time been thinking that it was Lyle.
and then you go robbing people's houses. You both are out of the fucking will, right?
This is interesting because contrary to what I would normally, I think that this is interesting because it provides an interesting motive for police, especially if you killed them before they had a chance to take you out of the will. I also think it's interesting to note that most of the time, and we're going to go back and we're going to talk about the allegations and the allegedly, there's a systemic pattern of behavior when somebody is abused. They act out. They do different things when they get abused. And that's also, sometimes it's the complete opposite. But to hear that they were robbing houses, I think is really interesting. And I do think that without knowing any allegations thus far in the show, what the parents did is exactly what should be done to kids. If you go out and you do something like rob people's houses while you are already set up for a financially free future and we can hand you everything, you no longer deserve what we have to hand you because you went and did something stupid. And I'm saying that from the perspective of somebody who may not know about the allegations yet. Not necessarily that I agree with everything that went down, but I can understand that. And let me talk about this now from a director standpoint and a writer standpoint. And I say a writer standpoint because even though this is based on their life story and this is based on true events, there still has to be some type of writing again to dress it up and make it entertaining. From a writer standpoint, what's happening right now is they're giving us a lot of motive. They're giving us a lot of motive as to this could have just been a crime of not necessarily passion, but like, okay, there are 3 reasons people get murdered: drugs, money, sex. Like, those are like the 3 things, right? Drugs, money, and sex. That's usually one of those 3 things is why people are dying. And so in this case, they're setting it up to where it's money. They killed their parents for the financial gain of it all, which is what a lot of people, I think, assumed is that's why they did it. They killed their parents for money. And without knowing the allegations, they're doing a great job from a writer's standpoint of setting it up to look like that, is what I'm trying to say. Roundabout way of saying that, sorry.
You're asking for a second limousine?
Yeah, that'd be great. Erik and I need to be someplace that's safe.
Of course. Where were you?
Hotel Bel Air.
I love his reaction to them. I adore his reaction to them, and I adore the fact that this is exactly how this was written, whether it was real or whether it was for entertainment purposes, because this is so genuine and authentic. Sometimes people do react like this. First of all, let me just say that. Obviously we know that they're guilty, so I'm gonna take the other route for a second. If we didn't know that they were guilty, sometimes people act like this. It's almost like it's harder for us to fathom somebody acting like this when somebody has died, because it's like, you should be sad. You should be grieving. You should be. It's a lot of you should be's, and society loves to do that, don't they? You should act like this. When in reality, that's just not the way that this works. And it's kind of like we've been so programmed to act a certain way after a death or a traumatic incident that when you don't, society looks at you and kind of goes, what is wrong with you? Now in this instance, there's a lot, like, I would have probably reacted in a way of like, no, something is wrong here, because they're almost, yes, they're acting like there's, it doesn't seem like there's grieving going on, but it's almost kind of like finally we can make decisions for ourselves. Finally we can do this. Okay, so we need an assistant, we need a second limousine, we're gonna want to stay at this specific hotel. It's like, like this, you've thought so far ahead that it's weird almost. So this is an interesting perspective of the brothers. And also, again, we're back to that word, the nonchalantness of it all. Is that a word? I don't know. I just made it up, I guess. But we're back to kind of that feeling of like, you guys are just acting so nonchalant. Like, you didn't just murder your parents. And then even like, oh, well, case closed. All right, there you go. Get us out of that house. Put us somewhere else. And he's kind of like, yo, your dad, like, you're about to use the company, your dad is dead. We're grieving, so why aren't you? Grief is an interesting thing.
Our life was one thing, and we decided we weren't gonna take that anymore, right? We wanted more out of life, so we did what we had to do. We made a fucking decision, and now we have it.
Is Erik gay? That's a genuine question. Let me know in the comments. I don't know. I have not done enough research to know if he's gay or not. And I'm not saying that because the way that he looked his brother up and down. I'm not saying that because of the Speedos that they're wearing. I'm not saying that for anything specific, any specific reason. It was just a genuine question. I'm not sure what their sexual orientation is. And I would like to know, so let me know in the comments if he is gay or not, or if either of them are gay. Okay. Lyle. I'm honestly, I guess I can't even be surprised. You know what I'm surprised? I am surprised that we did not see Lyle do drugs before the murder. That I am surprised about. And is that accurate to the story as well? Let me know in the comments if they did use drugs. And if that is the case and they did, I'm surprised that we didn't see him do that before the murders. It's almost like, obviously, you know, drugs kind of give you that confidence boost, give you that little extra edge, and Lyle is kind of very much in the stage of this, and I don't know. I've never done hard drugs. So I don't know, but does it act this fast? Was that like him on the drugs and like it reacting that him reacting that fast? Because like he's just, his personality type is so aggressive, like aggressive, not passive aggressive. It's like aggressive. And so like even when like he kind of holds his neck, I think that signifies something. I think that that's an interesting dynamic. That like there's kind of like that power trip of it all, and like Erik is kind of very much kind of like, not so much so that it's noticeable, but enough that if you look at his facial expressions and you kind of like look at his hands and the way that he's kind of like this, and he doesn't want to like he's kind of like, what is like it's almost like he's seeing a different version of his brother. So this is very interesting, and I figured that they were going to end up trying to either destroy the will or kill them before the will got changed.
This one, and this one.
Did you notice the color that's under the Rolexes? It's green. Huh?
You get those pants in every color, bro.
Wait a damn minute. I just got a face full of boobies and I did not ask for them. I gotta take a sip of my damn orange juice. What the hell? I mean, I guess. Shit, apparently. No, look, now that the party is jumping, I guess. The pumped up Reebok, and this is 1989 when this occurred. The pumped up Reebok. I didn't live in this decade. I was born in the 90s, but I did not like live within like this decade of 89 or 89 to 99. I guess I did, but like not in the point where I'll remember. But to spend money so carelessly, which, listen, to be financially free is, I think, that's something that every single person in this world, on this planet, in this lifetime can agree that that is what they want. It's to be financially free and to have that financial freedom. Now with these two, I think it's more of they didn't think that they would ever have the financial freedom, especially after everything had happened where they were going to get written out of the will. And so kind of this spending spree of like, just, well, he said, I'll take 10 of these, 10 of these, and 10 of these. You're gonna get those, you're gonna get that, those pants in every single color.
Oh, large. You got money. He got money. Get it all for him.
I'm assuming that the tennis coach that he hired was the best tennis coach that he can have. So it's just interesting things. And of course, Lyle was doing drugs this entire time. And I would imagine we're getting ready to see a lot more drugs. But the way that they're spending money is almost careless and childish a little bit, right? It's kind of like we're kind of letting our guard down and kind of letting the child, sorry guys, that was so fucking weird, letting that child version in us kind of come out and come forth. So we don't do that often enough. I think a lot of the times we kind of grow up because people tell us to, right? Grow up, act your age, things like that. And they're almost spending carelessly and childlike. And it's like they're finally in this stage where it's like, there's no restraint, there's no constriction, nobody's telling them that they can or they can't do this, and nobody would dare tell them that, right? Your parents just died and they were probably murdered and all of this. We wouldn't, like, I would not dare tell somebody that, is almost what people are, we wouldn't dare tell you that. So they're kind of spending and spending and spending, and they don't know if they're going to get more money. They have no idea. So they're spending and have no idea if that's going to come back to them tenfold or not. So I just think that this is kind of an interesting dynamic, and they're both happy. They're both happy. They both feel free. They both feel like they finally have gotten out of their old life, and they did. You did step into a new life. I just don't think it's going to be the one that you expected to step into. No. No. Is this true? Is that true, you guys? You guys. You guys. You guys. Okay. Okay. Wow, that's a lot. Okay, so are they like in love with each other? Which is weirdly, like, I don't think that this is uncommon. I think that there's a trauma bond that has been built, and it is very possible that their love map has been all distorted, and maybe they did fall in love with each other, and everybody at the party is kind of like, what is that about? That's not how you act with your brother. That's not how I act with my brother. That's not how I act with my sister. You don't act like that with people. Interesting. Very, very, very interesting. Yeah, okay. Because I was going to be like, okay, maybe Erik's not gay because he was with the girl and then his brother came and started to dance with him and it looked interesting. Okay. Man. Like, if that is the case, it tells me truthfully how bad it got. Like, that is just like a testament to how bad it actually got. If they kind of found comfort intimately with each other. It's a lot.
We've got some more interviews lined up.
For the third time, I'm gonna have to talk about the color in this. Look at the amount of blue. Loyalty, respect, honor, the boys in blue, the police station, the cops, right? Back to, like, everything is so fucking blue. Like, it's literally in our faces at this point. Like, they are utilizing their color theory classes that they took in college.
A nice couple had their heads blown off in their own home on a quiet Sunday evening.
What I was actually going to say was the Chief's acting there was actually bad. I said it. I meant it and I said it. I meant it and I said it. I meant it and I said it. Listen, I will let a lot of things slide, okay? I will always let a lot of things slide. I will give a lot of leeway. We obviously have suspension of disbelief or suspension of belief, however you want to say it. And that suspension of belief is basically this. When we watch movies, our mind knows that this is a movie, so we kind of allow you to get away with a little bit more than we normally would in real life, right? So, for example, if somebody gets stabbed in the back or if somebody gets stabbed in the leg, we expect them to bleed from the leg, right? That's like normal. That's like a normal thing. If somebody gets stabbed in the leg and they start bleeding out of their mouth, our suspension of belief is broken because that is not normal. People don't get stabbed in the leg and start bleeding out of their damn mouth. You have to get stabbed in the lung to bleed out of your mouth. So our suspension of belief is essentially kind of the illusions that we're willing to believe in because we know that it's an illusion, but it's also in a movie, right? So essentially it's the real life things happening in movies, but also the exaggerated version of those things happening in movies that we still believe in. My suspension of belief is broken when you have a bad actor on the screen. I don't believe that you're the chief of police. I don't believe that you care that there's people being murdered, and I don't think that you're a good cop. Like, that is what happens when you have bad talent on the screen, and I have to be the first person to call it out. You have a show like this where it's impactful, where we're talking about serious shit, and you bring in somebody who's not actually acting, and that probably slid over a lot of people's heads, and a lot of people probably didn't even notice it. And maybe it's just me being a director and kind of like, no, you can't, like, you gotta, let's do another take, bro. We gotta do another take. I gotta feel like you're really upset. I gotta feel like you're concerned. I gotta feel that, and I don't feel that from you. I feel like you're stale. I feel like you're dry. I feel like you're sitting there and you're waiting for them to finish their line so that you can say yours, and that's a problem.
And we look worse and worse.
Fuck it. You can't just leave.
I always find it interesting when, like, that's the conversation that has to be had, right? Like, and let me put it to you this way. Why do we have to get hounded by the chief and humiliated by the press to do our jobs properly? Explain that one to me. No, deadass. I'm actually asking. Somebody let me know in the comments. Because why is it that you're not delivering on the Menendez case because it's your fucking job and this is who you are? If this is who you are, if you are the guy who goes out and you get justice for the people who can't get it for themselves, you're a voice for the fucking voiceless, why do you have to get hounded to do your job? Why? Just go do your job if that's really what you want to do. I am a director, so it's what I do. I am a writer, so I write. I don't sit around and wait for somebody to go, you haven't written in a while. What's up with that? You haven't directed anything in a while. What's up with that? No, you just go out and you do it because it's who you are. It's what you do. I don't understand where, like, the disconnect is for that.
I don't know if you remember, but our parents were murdered.
I'll move some stuff around.
Coming into pause again. Hey, I'm back. The actor who is playing Lyle is a great actor, and let me explain to you why. He's a great actor because he is so fucking bad at acting in that moment. And I say that because he is acting, right? Like, he killed his parents, but he's acting like they don't know who killed their parents and they were murdered, and it's this tragic event, and that's why they're spending this money. But the acting is so bad. And I also think that it's interesting because we won't question that. We're not going to question how bad your acting is in that moment. And not us as the audience, but, like, I'm assuming this is like the family accountant. He's not going to question. He's not going to be like, wow, that's interesting. It doesn't really seem, that doesn't feel real raw coming off of you. It's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for being so insensitive. I should have remembered that your parents got murdered, so I should never ever question you about anything. So I think that that's so interesting. So he's a great actor because he's so bad in that moment, but he's supposed to be. He's a bad actor in that moment. Lyle is the one who's being the actor, and we're getting ready to watch Erik go. He's kind of in this loop of guilt, and clearly he's been in it since the day that the murders happened.
We don't even know where the fuck it is.
I would be legally bound to tell the executive that something like that had happened.
dirty pictures or anything because I don't want my mother to be humiliated anymore, Uncle Brian.
Like a fucking fiddle. Like a fucking, played them like a fucking fiddle. Again, we're back here again. Nobody is going to question that. Nobody is going to question you. And it's like Lyle does this thing where he like flips his switch. And it's like nobody's gonna, and everybody's kind of at first kind of like, well, whoa, what do you mean? And then he's like, well, and then I just, it's like, what the dude? Oh my goodness. And Erik just kind of stands back like a lump on a log, just like yeah. Fuck. Lyle. And I know a lot of you have told me that this is actually not who Lyle was. And so I feel like I am going through these motions of watching as somebody who has no idea who these people are. It's just so crazy. So crazy. And I'm assuming that Carlos is Jose's brother. That's my assumption there. And Uncle Brian is the mom's brother, is my assumption.
All of my assets shall be split evenly. Joseph Lyle Menendez and Erik Galen Menendez.
Lyle is a junior? Lyle is a junior. That's interesting. I wonder what weight that comes with. And I wonder if that's why there's so much weight, or that's why it feels so heavy for Lyle to like step into his dad's shoes and be his father, is because like he's a junior. And if you're a junior, if you know somebody who's a junior, can you kind of tell me and just let me know in the comments, like, do you think that holds weight, or have you seen that hold weight? And I don't think that's necessarily the case for everybody, but I think that in a situation where the person whose name you have when they were such a big role in like society and successful and all of this, I think that could hold a lot of weight. At least if you allow it to. And I think that's a lot of our issue, is that we don't realize that a lot of this, even what they did, and I'm speaking not when it comes to the allegations, not when it comes to the sexual abuse, not when it comes to what their parents did, but outside of that, outside of the physical of it all, I understand that there are just some things that we can't control. And I understand that there are just these human emotions that we have to feel. But if it can be such a beautiful thing when you understand that a lot of that pain and a lot of that sadness and a lot of that kind of that incessant feeling and need to take on these roles or these characteristics or these mannerisms or these moments or these ideas or these ideals or these morals of people, that feeling, when you understand that you don't have to feel like that, you don't have to allow that to control you or to make you who you are. You can choose to be your own person. And obviously in their situation, that's a lot more difficult with everything else that was going on. But that's just kind of tying back into like that feeling of having to step into his father's shoes as a junior. So I think that that's interesting.
No, I'm talking about Ozil. I can't kill him.
The more people that know about what happened, the greater the chances that you and I get fucking caught.
But ever since your reading of the will, I felt worse.
Let me tell you why you felt worse, Erik. First, let me do this. Let me point out a couple different things here. What you notice is, as Erik is saying, I can't do it. Kill Dr. Ozil, which, as we know, that was their plan at the end of the last episode. He was like, I know, you know what we gotta do. He's like, what? He's like, what? Like, almost like innocent. What? We gotta kill him. He's like, yeah, you know, I can't do it. And it's interesting, as you see Lyle walk over, that camera is in that low angle, and that's showing the dynamic between these brothers. Lyle now is the one in power. Lyle's the one, he's the aggressor, he's the more dominant one right now, and it moves over, and then Lyle goes, well, this is your fucking fault. You're the one that said it. We could have got away with murder, but you had to go get a guilty conscience. And then he says, you told me that we would feel better, we'd kill them and we would get the money, which I do think that is interesting. I think it's interesting because he's saying, you told me that it would feel better if we killed them and got the money, as in like we would feel better from what was happening prior to killing them. So something was dramatic enough, and this again is me coming from a place that I don't know what the allegations are. Something was dramatic enough before the actual murder that they decided to kill, which we knew obviously, but he's saying, you told me that I was going to feel better, but I don't. You said we were going to feel better. I feel worse since the will. And a lot of that is because they did leave you everything. They did give you everything. And now it feels like, obviously, like I said, there's some guilt there, there's some remorse there from Erik, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, he has come out and said to this day he wishes he can take back what he did. So you're feeling like that, he's feeling like this, he's feeling these emotions, this heaviness, because it's like, well shit, they left us everything still. And I thought that I'd feel better. I thought that money was going to buy that happiness. I thought that being free was going to buy that happiness. I thought that killing them was going to buy that happiness. And all of this happiness that we're searching for, he still hasn't. Let me run on to a little tangent for you guys. A lot of the times when we're asking for reassurance, a lot of the times when we're asking for somebody to love us, for somebody to make us happy, for somebody to care about us, for the feelings from somebody else to help make us anything, it's because we haven't been able to find a way to do that for ourselves. And the unfortunateness of this situation is because of all of the sexual abuse that they endured before the murders, there was never going to be a chance after the fact for them to ever feel like that. Lyle, maybe with the way that they're portraying him, yes, because he's kind of put up this ego. Let me be the spiritual director for a second, right? So we have our ego and we have our higher self, or the spirit, or the soul, or whatever you want to call it. Lyle is kind of operating from that egotistical place of like, I'm stepping into dad's shoes, I'm the man of the house, I have money, I have wealth, I have status, I have success, all ego materialistic things. Erik, his ego right now is clashing with his soul. It is clashing, and it is an internal battle, and baby, that is the biggest battle you will ever experience in your life, is when your ego clashes with your soul. But the most beautiful thing that can come out of that is you understand that what is happening, like I said in the last video, is most people and everybody is inherently good. It is the soul. The soul is not capable of anything, but it is a lot of bad intent that taints that soul, or that taints that ego. So that's kind of why Erik is in the state of like, I don't feel better, and you won't feel better. Nothing will make you feel better, because you have to make you feel better, and you can't fucking do that because you've been so fucking abused and been so far down the rabbit hole that it's damn near impossible to climb out at this point. Thanks for letting me ramble.
I may have to fucking end up killing you.
Confession, I'm going to put him in a safety deposit box. I will give you the key.
This is black tourmaline for spiritual protection.
No. I mean, listen, it is okay to not be so modern, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. It's okay to not be so modern. You don't have to add spirituality into this bullshit because you haven't added it. It's okay to, it's just okay. It's okay to not add spirituality into it. Just let it be. It's okay. Now, if this is just who she was genuinely, if this character exists and this is who this woman is, that's fine. But if you wrote this character into this show, but I believe one of you guys did tell me that he was in fact having an affair. So if this is actually who she was, that's fine. And if this is true to her character, that's fine. But if you are doing this to modernize and bring about a specific audience into this show, that is not okay. And what you'll find is most of the spiritual audience, most of these people who are spiritually inclined, even myself, it is tough to watch this fucking show. It's hard to get through it. It's hard to get through the first damn episode. So trying to bring in that spiritual audience is interesting, but it's okay to not try to put spirituality into anything or do it right. That's all I'm gonna say. I haven't even watched past this. I don't know what's gonna happen with that, but it's okay to not do it, especially because most people don't do it properly.
And I will ask her if you can stay in the guest house.
You do still love me forever and always?
Yes.
Baby, ain't nothing like a man lying. Spoiler alert, I have a lot of trouble liking men. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. That was an accident. I kicked the fucking camera. I apologize. Interesting. That's like a fun, interesting little thing that I just witnessed. A couple of things here. I think it's interesting that the doctor, who is very much what I can see, what I can learn, what I can touch, what I can taste, what I can feel, the sense-based things, a doctor and somebody who is so spiritual, and I have to put air quotes around that, you guys. I'm sorry, I don't know if this is really who she is, but I think it's interesting, the dynamic of the two, because that's going to clash. Most of the time it's going to clash because spirituality, the irony of this is spirituality takes a lot of faith. And you can say this about every religion, I'm aware, but one thing I will say is with spirituality, there is not a certain upkeep. And I've said this ample time. If you know me, you've heard me say it. If you've seen a podcast episode, you've heard me say it. Spirituality does not require me to uphold a specific standard to get anything, not to manifest good, not to get what I desire. I don't have to uphold a certain amount of things. The 3D things that I follow and the 3D rules that I follow is because I know that there are consequences here on Earth. That's what I know. I know that there are consequences in this lifetime. And so that's why I follow those rules. But with spirituality, it does not require me to do specific things. I don't have to go a place every week. I don't have to pray every time. I don't like there's things that I don't have to do. So when I say that it takes a lot of faith, that's what I mean. So spirituality is kind of like the ocean, vast, far, wide, endless, and being the doctor, the psychologist in this instance is like a pool, confined, constricted, chemicalized. There's a lot, you know what I mean? That's the analogy I'm going to use. It's like a pool in an ocean. One of these is freer than the other, and you'll find. And it's also interesting because clearly this man does not love her. Clearly this man just wants to be having fun and having affairs, and she's kind of fallen into this trap of like, you told me that you loved me, and the one thing that I hate more than anything in this world, and I can't say the word hate because it's not possible to hate, but the one thing that I dislike more than anything is telling somebody you love them and not meaning it. It is the worst thing that you can do to somebody mentally. So I think it's interesting that it's coming from a doctor in this perspective, or a psychologist or a psychiatrist. The fact that he's telling her he loves her and he doesn't mean it, because that would mess her up like more than anything, because we get attached to that word. That's a big word. It's what people wait lifetimes to hear or lifetimes to feel. So to just kind of throw that out there willy-nilly because you want to keep having sex with her is absolutely wild. And whoever called him a menace on last week's episode, you're right, he's a fucking menace.
I know. I can't believe we didn't check their hands for gunshot residue the night of the murders. Talk about a fuck up.
Wow, this is really showing you how fucking ignorant the police is, isn't it? This is really showing you how ignorant it is. What do you mean you didn't check their hands for gunshot residue? Come on. Listen, I know that I said time in the last video, but clearly time is just, nothing has fucking changed. Because how do you not... I ain't even a detective. I'm not an agent. I'm nothing. And even I know, check the hands for gunshot residue. And I know that you have to actually check the opposite hand for gunshot residue if it's a shotgun. So it's just like, come on. Their clothes should have been tested for gunshot residue. we want the clothes that you were wearing that night. Granted, obviously they changed their clothes out, but still, it's just like, come on. And to know that that's the reason that they weren't, come on. Ugh. You check the opposite hand, because when you hold a shotgun and you pull the trigger, the hand closest to the barrel is where the gunshot residue is going to fall, right? So if you're holding a handgun, most of the time you're holding the handgun like this. One hand is under the clip, one hand is on the trigger, and then when that gunshot residue comes back, it'll kind of come back right here on your hand, and this hand's farther away from the barrel. But when you're holding a shotgun, your trigger finger is back here, even if you're left-handed. Your trigger finger is back here, and this hand that pumps the gun, right, or cycles the bullet, is what's happening. It's cycling a shell. So once you pump it, it cycles and it pushes a shell out, and then it pulls the next shell in. When you shoot, that barrel and the gunshot residue falls onto this hand. So you actually have to check the opposite hand. So the non-dominant hand is the one that's going to have the gunshot residue. And I know that.
You wrote a screenplay about killing our parents.
I need an insurance policy.
Honestly, Doc, I don't really have any more issues.
The irony here is that he is the issue. You are now the issue. You are Erik's issue. Erik is your issue. So you keep saying that, but it's like even when prior to this, earlier on in the episode, when he was not that much earlier on, when he was like, you keep fucking up like this, little bro, I'm gonna have to fucking kill you. It's like you are creating more issues. You are creating the issues. I think it's interesting that Erik wrote about it. And is this after or before? After or prior to? Because if it's after, it would make sense to me. It's kind of his coping mechanism. I know that for myself, if I'm going through anything, my coping mechanism or my escapism is writing. So it would make sense. And you kind of write what you know, or you write what you would want, or you write what you desire. And this just kind of shows you, if it was before, manifestation is powerful.
I love you, son. A warrior who has lost his parents is still a warrior.
No. It's gonna be a no for me, actually. It is gonna be a no for me, unfortunately. It was a great effort, though. It was a beautiful effort. One thing that you're not gonna do is lie to me. Don't be my fucking... Then we're not friends. You're not my friend if you're gonna sit here and lie to me and tell me that it's really, really good when it's not. And I don't know if this is because he also wrote it, so he's like, yeah, bro, this is really good. Like, we sit on a gold mine right now. Or... there's not really another option. Don't lie to me as my friend. If my shit is bad, tell me my shit is bad. This is unacceptable to me. See, this creates delusion.
I mean, we knew it was a pretty twisted story when we wrote it, but it was just a movie.
I'm so sorry, you guys. I have to do it. In the words of Billy, movies don't create psychos, Sid. Movies make psychos more creative.
What he told me,
Billy Loomis, Scream 1.
What you and Lyle did?
Craig, what the fuck? Did the cops contact you as part of their investigation?
Right.
Because Lyle and I didn't fucking kill our parents.
It's interesting because that was kind of the first time we saw Erik kind of take on this persona of dominance, of kind of like being the aggressor, and kind of that same, I wouldn't say the same hate in his eyes, which I guess that's not true. You can still kind of consider there to be some hate for when he kind of has to think back to his parents in that night, but kind of that same persona of like that look in his eye that's kind of like it's just not him, right? It's like two different people who are kind of fighting for the light, or fighting for like that front person. So that was kind of the first time, and poor Craig was just so hopeless in that moment, so useless. There was no way. And usually you would think that they kind of would have prepped him, told him the right way to ask the questions, told him the way to kind of slide into it, which was good for a second there. It was just when he started to go, come on, man, like, you already told me that you did it. And then it's like, bro, come on. You gotta be more nonchalant than that, baby. You gotta figure that shit out.
I don't think we ever thought about it like that.
Yeah, it was more like, well, if we're gonna kill our dad, we should probably just kill our mom, too.
We ought to be business partners.
How hesitant these boys are to give the actual motive behind the killing, and not just to the police, not to their friends, but to the doctor. And I understand that Lyle, at least, is still very much kind of in a space of like, we don't trust him. The only reason we're here is because we can't kill him, and we don't want him to tell to tell the police what happened. But I'm wondering if it's just because it was such if it was just such a different time, if it was just a different time in history where it's just like it's not acceptable to talk about things like that, and it's not normal, and it's not appropriate, and it's not, again, it's unacceptable for a man to have been assaulted, essentially, or a man to have been abused. And I wonder if that's a thing. I'm wondering if humiliation and embarrassment is a thing. It's embarrassing that this happened to us. And knowing a little bit more about them as far as like watching the trial and everything, like knowing kind of what happens later on, like there's got to be a lot of shame and guilt in what happened to them. And so when you have to kind of bring that up to the therapist, it's just kind of like, no, we can't have anybody know. I would rather you think that I'm a cold-blooded murderer than you know that I was abused. That's crazy.
Now, you tell my daughter you're gonna replace her mother? Are you fucking insane?
You should wear that amethyst crystal I got you. Your third eye chakra's a little off.
How do I feel about that? Your third eye chakra is a little off. 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 I wouldn't, third eye? Your heart chakra, your throat chakra, your crown chakra. I don't know that I would have said your third eye chakra is a little off. That kind of implies like your ability to be awake, to kind of see, to know the truth, and like your awareness. So I don't know that that makes sense. But what I will say is this: there's a lot, and what I find interesting is people always like tiptoe and walk this line even when they know what the potential consequences could be. Like, you know that she knows about the Menendez case. You gave her the damn security box key, and then you still go and you do this. You should have been honest. You should have told the truth as the psychologist. You should have told the truth. And now because you didn't, this could go one of two ways, right? And it's interesting because with that music behind it, and this is directing, and this is filmmaking, right? When you have a scene, that scene can potentially make or break your show. And by that, personally, and it can make or break your emotions as an audience member. But by that I mean that music specifically made me think that he was going to do all of this. He was going to go off. He was going to say, I'm not going to leave my life. And then she was going to go take her life. Truthfully, that's what I thought. Because the way that they chose to put the music in, if it was going to go the opposite, which is what they're trying to explain to me, right? They're trying to get us to believe that she's going to go and she's going to be this vindictive person, and she's going to either tell about the Menendez case, or she's going to tell something that's going to get him, do you get disbarred as a psychiatrist? Or a psychologist? I don't know. But whatever it is, she's going to kind of get his license revoked, stuff like that. So that, I kind of would have went with a sound that made me feel like that a little bit more. You know what I mean? I would have went with kind of like a more jarring soundtrack under that. So that's interesting. I think that I was having conflicting emotions in that moment. And he kind of is God, he's kind of the worst kind of psychologist. Like, you're the kind of like the worst kind of person. Even when he's like, I think we should be business partners, it's kind of like, is this really who you are, dog? Like, you're really finding an opportunity out of this? Are you about to start fucking blackmailing them? Like, what is happening?
I have some information about the Menendez case I think you'll want to hear.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, 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 wow. Interesting. Yeah. No. Yeah. I kind of saw that coming. Although I thought that the therapist was going to do it. I thought that he was going to break that doctor-client confidentiality. So sorry about that. I personally thought that the doctor was going to break the client doctor confidentiality. I didn't think that it was going to be her, but it would make sense. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned is what they say, I believe. So interesting. That's an interesting kind of turn on things, and it definitely kind of, and does that now incriminate the doctor because you knew that a crime was committed, and are you legally bound to speak up if a crime is committed? So I guess those are just things that I don't know, and I love not knowing things. It's fun for me to not know things. It's fun for me to not know things and for me to learn things, and so this has been a really fun journey for me. Yeah, I think this episode taught us a lot. It taught us a little bit more about who Erik and Lyle are individually. It also taught us about kind of their motives behind this, because as much as they're saying it was not for money, I believe them. I don't think that initially they went in it for the money. I think that the money just kind of fell into their laps after, and they assumed, and it's like Erik said, he assumed that because he had all of this money, it was going to make him happy, and it didn't. So I do think that the money just kind of played a small portion in a bigger plot. So that's interesting. I think that this episode, for me personally, there was a lot of contrast. There was a lot of color contrast. There was a lot of contrast in personality between Erik and Lyle, and who we've seen them be and who we've seen them be in the first episode versus who they are in this episode. There's a lot of contrast between the cops, and there's a lot of contrast between friends. We see family finally come in. We're starting to meet a little bit more people. We got Craig, who we found out Erik wrote a fucking screenplay, I guess. I don't fucking know, man. I don't know. So yeah, I just think it's interesting. I'm interested to see how they're going to kind of play into this abuse. And like I said, prior to this, or like in the beginning of the video, Ryan Murphy came out talking about how the abuse was pretty heavily documented throughout the series. So I'm interested to see how they kind of bring that and what kind of pulls that out of them, because it seems like at this point, it's going to take a lot for these two boys to talk about that. It's going to take a lot for them to kind of open up about the abuse. And I also think that it's interesting that they have not started talking about the abuse. And I don't know if I had heard this in the trial. I don't know if I had heard this kind of in one of the, like, golly, what are they called? You know, what is it? Like a 48 hours episode? 48 hours, 48, the first 48? Jeez, that was rough, man. The first 48 episodes? But it wasn't the first 48 episodes. It was like kind of like a retelling of like the Menendez case by them a couple of years later, and 10 years later, 20 years later, whatever. But they were kind of talking about how they didn't bring up the actual sexual abuse story until they were arrested. But I don't know that that's true, because I feel like I also heard their therapist talk about how they did bring it up, and he had suggested that they needed some jail time, but they also needed like serious and intense therapy. So I'm interested to see that and what kind of brings that out of them. Great episode. I enjoyed it. I like that we're getting more details. I actually really adore when a show is able to go past and present with ease, and I can tell the difference without anything dramatic changing. So a lot of the times, like if you're going back into the past, you'll see like a color change in hue, or in saturation, or in the clothes that they're wearing, or like certain things like that versus like the present where it's different. But with this, it's pretty easy to kind of tell what the past versus the present is. Granted, there was like the 2 months later marker, but like even before that, like I knew I was in the past. I knew that it wasn't before, and there were a couple moments where I was like, well, was that before or after? But I think that it just wasn't clarified in the moment. Like when Craig is talking to the police, obviously that's before, but like the screenplay, I didn't know that if that was being brought up right then, or if they had wrote it a while ago. Excuse me. So yeah, I think that's an interesting, that's a seamless, when it's seamless like that, it's good, it's well written and well directed, and well filmed. So yeah, I enjoyed this episode. This was a fun episode. I might put this on Patreon. You might be able to watch my full reaction on Patreon and watch like the whole show with me, but I might not. And if I don't put this on Patreon, then I think we might just do like a poll to see what the first video that I should watch on Patreon is. But this was fun. I enjoyed this episode. Obviously, this is only episode number 2 out of 9. We got 7 more to go. Yes, I'm not good with math. No, I'm excited to see what's next. I'm excited to see what the next episode is. I'm excited to watch the next episode with you guys. This has been fun for me. This is always fun for me. You know, I'm a TV fanatic. If I'm not watching it, I'm writing it. So this has been good. This has been great. We're getting a little bit more into it, and I'm excited for the next episode. I might actually go watch it right now, but you won't see that until I release that. So yeah, this was fun. This is good. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to yourselves. Be good to yourselves. Like, subscribe, comment down below. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know how you're feeling. Let me know. When I'm asking you guys questions, I'm genuinely asking those questions, and I genuinely want me to let me know, because sometimes I don't know. So it's nice to go into the next episode like knowing, okay, like this and this and this and this and this. So I appreciate all of you guys. And yeah, I'm excited for the next episode. Thanks for sticking around. If you stuck around and you enjoyed it, great, give us a thumbs up. If you stuck around and you didn't enjoy it, I'm sorry that you didn't enjoy it, but thanks for sticking around, I guess. But yeah, I mean, of course, I'll see you guys next time. Again, be good to yourselves, take care of yourselves, be kind. I love you.